What did you learn this week?
Man, the list is too long to even
What's the
go
number
through.
one thing that you learned this week?
Block out the noise.
Yeah, don't worry about the noise. Block it out. Focus on the people who are here that want to make a difference, and invest everything you have into those that want to do it, those that want to move it forward.
Alex, why did you come?
To get new ideas and to expand my mind and to grow my business and collaborate with all these great people.
Were you disappointed?
So,
Excellent.
I think that I learned that, I know Brian, I just really truly met Judd. I know a lot of you guys on social, but I think the one thing I can walk away from knowing your guys' industry is there is a group of people here right now that are doing the next big jump. And dude, hats off to all of you guys in your industry for being here. That's amazing for me to see from the outside. It's just amazing.
The best way to draw some parallels are to, believe it or not, you're going to think this sounds odd. I want to tell you my mother's life story, her timeline. She was born in 1915. World War I had been going on for 2 years and still had another 2.5 to go before it finished. When she was 14, the stock market crashed. As a teenager and as a young adult, she lived through the Great Depression. She saw railroads go from being the mode of transportation across the country to being second-class citizens. She saw her first radio, her first television, her first color television. She saw her first computer, which, believe me, by then, she didn't understand it no matter how many times I sat her in front of it and tried to explain how it worked.
So she was like, Joe.
I don't know, a little bit further advanced, but so she saw more change in her almost 6 months shy of 100 years than anybody could really comprehend. If you think about a video reel playing of the timeline, and you've seen these great YouTube things where somebody photographs themselves for 5 years and you see all these changes. Imagine that spread out over 100 years of all the changes. Okay. Heated their house with coal, saw cars become prevalent. There was no interstate highway system until the 50s. She saw all these changes. She saw the first airplane. She saw the first rocket ships launch. She saw the first man on the moon, and came from a background where she had a bicycle that she rode to school. She not only saw the space program capture the world's imagination, but she saw the space program become so routine that the media stopped covering it. Shuttles would go up and come back, and nobody really, after a while, you see on the news that something goes up and everybody's like, yeah, but, what time's dinner? Okay. So how does this play out to our industry? Can anybody here tell me the first year that sealer was made?
No.
Nobody? Anybody want to take a stab?
I'm thinking 44 years ago.
I was not around when I was first made. I've been around long before me.
Wow.
First sealer was made in 1938. Okay. Does anybody know what it was designed for? What it was used for?
No.
So I'm going to tie this back into my mom a little bit. It was used to coat the floor of railroad cars.
Oh.
To preserve them. Okay. That's the means of transportation. That's how you ship goods across the country. It stayed fairly dormant until the late 50s, early 60s is when it really started to pick up. And there were a few pioneers in the late 60s, early 70s that really, originally it was for big contractors with a lot of equipment, but a Harold Neal and a Dave Weichel made small equipment that allowed a guy to have a pickup truck and pull a rig, and he could be in business. But before then, you were buying railroad cars full of drums. You were getting deliveries that most people couldn't handle because they didn't have a bulk tank. So there was my mother's life. She saw things all of a sudden towards the end skyrocket. In the sealer industry, things stayed the same for a long time. And then back, in the mid 70s, all of a sudden there were some innovation. And then in the 70s and early 80s, a couple people started having regional shows. They were manufacturers of either equipment or material. And then in the early 80s in Nashville, in an old basketball arena that no longer exists, was the first, what we now call NPE. And yes, I was there. It wasn't that long ago in my life. And I will never forget the first several years because, now let's rewind a little bit. It's 1980, roughly. You couldn't do that with a cell phone. There wasn't a computer. Everything was still telephones. Everything was phone books. Everything was mailers. Everything was word of mouth. The basketball arena was packed. And it was like the first time your kids can go to Disney World and comprehend it. And the momentum of that alone spurred a lot of interest in this industry. But the reason it did is because you no longer felt like you were isolated. You could go find better ways to do things, and people were willing to talk to you. Okay. And of course, mailing lists and mailers and all that kind of stuff was the prominent means of communication along with the telephone. But for the first decade or 15 years, when that show finally went to an arena or a conference center, so all the vendors would set up, and when the show was about to open, when the exhibit hall was about to open, I mean, basically, people were lined up from here to that villa waiting to get in the door. There was such a need for people to understand better ways to do things. And you know what happened? Just like all the space shuttle launches, after a while, it just sort of plateaued off. Okay. Still, we have the show, and people still go there to find things. But is there any really huge, great leap of anything? Because you know where the next great leap is? It's here. It's the ideas that you have. It's the ideas that you have. It's the ideas that you have spent how many years developing and maturing. And it's the ideas that are being passed along to you. So now communication is so instant. And for people like me, almost too instant and too overwhelming. I am extremely cautious before I answer a text message, an email, or an intercompany blog thing, because I see so many people just blurt something out and it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But you guys know how to handle it. You've lived with it, right? Most of you have, it's been part of your lives ever since you can remember. And it keeps changing, but to you, it doesn't seem like it's changing that fast unless you get some innovation, you get some new ideas, you get some other things. So my point is, it's time for that next plateau. And what is the one knock against contractors, period? What's the one thing that leaps to your mind when somebody's going to complain about a contractor?
Trust.
Bingo. So our industry is one that a lot of suppliers view as high maintenance. We handle a lot of people that we chase for money. We handle a lot of people who say, I bought this load of sealer. I did 500 jobs, but this one is bad. So what'd you do to the sealer? Okay. They don't take ownership. Most importantly, they don't take the time to understand really what they're doing and how the materials they use are designed to work. Okay? Because why? Honestly, it's awfully easy to go out and spread some black stuff on some asphalt and make it look decent. But the people who really want to be top contractors not only need to know how to best represent the industry, how to best use the tools at hand, they also need to know what those tools are designed to do, what those materials are designed to do. So all that put together, to me, I look around this room, you guys play hard, you work hard, you're smart, you're entrepreneurs.
Good looking.
Okay? Very hardworking people. Most people don't understand.
Good looking. Good
Oh.
looking.
Well, yeah,
Good looking.
most of you are. I'm not going to pick. That's not up for me. But so to me, this is very exciting because it's no secret. I'm at the end of my career, and I've watched this industry explode in some ways, but it's never exploded in the way that it should, and that's from people wanting to present themselves, do better work, not worry about the noise. I think I've heard the term hater this week, and I'm going to tell you what, don't. Because when you use that term, you're actually buying into the negativity of the people. Okay? All those people are is noise.
Yep.
They're going to bother you. They're going to get under your skin. They're going to make your life miserable every chance they get. That's okay. You know what? That's their problem, not yours.
Mhm.
What did you learn this week? What did you learn this week?
Man, the list is too long to even
What's the
go
number
through.
one thing that you learned this week?
Block out the noise.
Yeah, don't worry about the noise. Block it out. Focus on the people who are here that want to make a difference, and invest everything you have into those that want to do it, those that want to move it forward.
Alex, why did you come?
To get new ideas and to expand my mind and to grow my business and collaborate with all these great people.
Were you disappointed?
Nope.
Excellent. Anybody else? What is the one main thing that, and there's no right answer, but what's the one main thing that you walked away from this week?
To believe I can do it.
I didn't ask you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
We
you're
can
good.
do it. Camaraderie, team.
Yeah, together, you're stronger. Yes.
I think that I learned that, I know Brian, I just really, truly met Judd. I know a lot of you guys on social, but I think the one thing I can walk away from knowing your guys' industry is there is a group of people here right now that are doing the next big jump. And dude, hats off to all of you guys in your industry for being here. That's amazing for me to see from the outside. It's just amazing. You
And I
guys
didn't.
all
I
deserve.
didn't write that answer for him, but it leads to my final point.
No, well, there we go.
What all of you know is that there are better ways to do things. What you may not understand, or what may not be in your vision right now, is this industry is at a tipping point. There are regulations. There are a number of things working against it. So anybody who does a job that's subpar, whatever material you're using, that the customer over time says there's no value in this, the industry erodes. And it's at that breaking point where some people need to step up and make sure that things are done right. And I will tell you, and I shared this with Judd today, I just hired somebody from Shell Oil, a PhD chemist, who I'm giving her a very substantial budget to put together the best asphalt emulsion that we can possibly do that changes the way we have to treat materials that will last as long, if not longer, than coal tar. And that's her entire task. Because if suppliers don't do this, then the materials that we have today that are not coal tar based will not provide enough value for your customers to come back to you and want it done again. So that's my commitment to the industry. And I'm hoping all of you commit yourselves to the industry to raise the bar in the levels that not only you perform the work, but you represent the industry. And I'm really grateful to be here and appreciate everything. And I do owe you an apology. I didn't mean to seem a little aloof, but this was the week that all 19 of our locations had their webinars giving their sales and budget projections for the year. So there's been a lot of phone calls and some distractions, and a few, politics and all that kind of stuff. But thank you for your time. Enjoy your dinner, and thank you for inviting me.